Keep yourself in the loop of everything football. Listen to Alex and Jeremiah on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello there, I'm Jeremiah.
I am Alex, always and forever here.
Dedicated to college and NFL football. The latest football news on and off the field. NFL draft trade rumors. We've got you covered from the NFL, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything else in between. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. From the latest signings to this year's breakout stars and all the news in between, as always, I'm Jeremiah.
I am Anthony.
And I am Alex.
And we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to get into some college football talk. We're going to be discussing if the playoffs should be expanded or not. I'm pretty sure it's going to be very in-depth. And then we're also going to talk about the new Oregon Ducks hire. And no, it is not Chip Kelly, guys. It is not.
Not even close.
Not even close at all. It's kind of why left, just how our last segment is.
Oh, nice.
And we're, of course, every Wednesday we're going to get into the Why Left Wednesday segment. So, where we're going to begin? You want to begin with some college football?
Yes. So, Jeremiah and I talked about this. We were texting about it the other day, and I figured it'd be better to have the conversation when all three of us were here. And whether or not we really think the playoff system, now that it is established who the top four teams will be, whether or not we really think they should do a 6-man playoff kind of rotation, or maybe if one of you even wants to argue for an 8-man playoff rotation, we can do that. But I would say to argue for a 6-man at my point here, and this is my reasoning, is you look at the top four, it's Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Washington. Yes, those are the best teams apparently all year in a sense, you know? Excuse me. And then you have Penn State and Michigan as the first two teams out. Penn State obviously very capable, having won as many as they have in a row and beating Ohio State this year. And Michigan having been arguably better than Ohio State most of the year and losing a game many thought they should have won. So you have the two teams that are first out, right? Excuse me. I think that football, especially college football, is a very wacky type of game in the sense that anybody can really beat anybody any day. And we saw that when Michigan fell and Ohio State fell and Washington fell all on the same day. Anybody can really beat anybody, and we've even seen the monster of Alabama fall at times, to Auburn or to Texas A&M last year, and so anybody can really win a game, at any given Sunday is the NFL thing, and that's very relevant to the NFL as well. We saw, the Steelers in 2005 as a wild card team go from just making the playoffs as a wild card team to win the Super Bowl, and we saw the Giants doing it the same year they beat the undefeated Patriots, and we saw the Packers do it in 2010 when they beat the Steelers. So. It's kind of the same thing in college football, especially. Yes, there's much more of a significant difference in the good teams to the bad teams as there might be in the NFL. But in college football, those top 6 teams, in my opinion, other than maybe Bama, not a lot separates them in that sense. So I think you could have if it's the 3, 4, 5, 6, you could have the same format. The 4 plays the 5, the 3 plays the 6, and 1 and 2 have a bye.
Right.
And then the winner of 4-5 plays 2, and the winner of 3-6 plays 1, or the highest remaining seed. The same thing they do in the NFL playoffs.
Yeah.
This is the college football is the only, in a sense, it's separate from the BCS. It's separate from college football in a sense because it is the bowl. It's the playoffs. It's not like March Madness. That's NCAA March Madness. It's not the NCAA college football playoffs. It's the college football playoffs. The NCAA has playoff formats in terms of round robin seeding, all that stuff in almost every other type of sport that they have except for football. And I think that the playoff system is cool. I thought the adaptation of it the last few years has been really like a shot in the arm for excitement in college football, even though I don't think there was a lot lacking in college football excitement. But I think if you expand it to 6 teams, I think you can look at a Penn State playing. They'd play Washington. I think they would match up really, in my scenario, they'd match up really well against Washington.
Oh, no, they will.
Exactly. And then you'd have Ohio State playing Michigan again, and who knows how that would turn out the second time. I feel like you could do so much in terms of revenue and in terms of skill of these games moving forward, that let alone moving to 6. I don't know how 8 would work at this time, I haven't thought of it enough to put a scenario in my head. But the 6 with the buys of the 1 and the 2s, and then having the same format of the lowest playing the highest and the 2 middle ones playing each other. I think that would, looking at it right now, I would love to watch Ohio State and Michigan play again, and I would love to see Penn State and Washington.
Especially in a playoff game.
Exactly.
Why would not anyone not tune into that?
Exactly.
And then I don't have a problem with expanding the playoffs to 6. I think that's a very reasonable number, because if you expand it to 8, you would have Oklahoma and Wisconsin. I wouldn't have problems with those teams in the playoffs, but the thing is, I don't think the committee wants a 3-loss team in there, and that's Wisconsin at 8. And if you were going to have an 8-team playoff, then that means all the conference champions would have to be in there.
And almost the runner-ups also.
And then you would have to have 2 at large, and then you would have to have one in a group of 5 team in there. So I think like this year, I think the group of 5 team would have been Western Michigan. If they would say if there were 8, there's no way they would have competed well against Alabama. There's just an imbalance of competition. That's the only way you will have to do an 8-team playoff. Is if you do all the conference champions.
You have to do like the NFL in a sense.
Exactly. It'll be out the NFL, but I don't think the committee would be a fan of that.
Yeah, I think if you keep it if you would say do 6, right, and you keep it the same format that it is, where they vote them in, not necessarily seeding in terms of conference winners and all that, you would have it, let's say it's 6 this year. You would have it exactly as it is this year. You'd have the people arguing for Michigan being a better team in terms of strength schedule against Ohio State. And you would have all of the conference winners to appease the people arguing that not all the conference winners are in there with Ohio State over Penn State. So not only would you have the quote-unquote 4 best teams, you would still include one of the best teams in Michigan and the conference champion in Penn State to appease the people that are arguing that those 2 teams deserve to be in there.
The only thing that comes with like a problem with that, whatever, is like you said, if it was Michigan at 6, if the top 6 teams, Michigan comes in there, okay, well then why are they ahead of Oklahoma, who hypothetically won?
You would
there?
still have to base it off of the way they would have to change in an ideal the way they do their voting in the mind of 6, but at the same time I think you just there's no right way in their mind to do it. I think you still keep the criteria the same, and it just turns into 6 rather than 4. Oklahoma, they were good, but they were ranked high and they fell. Michigan didn't lose didn't lose till late in the season. So you go by the same criteria. I would have maybe even put Wisconsin behind SC in the sense of the way the teams are playing. When you look at the strength of what they are as opposed to what they were. So I don't know exactly how they have their criteria. We've heard here and there what they really weigh more than other things.
And 8 becomes weird because that's like you're talking about with 3 losses. Okay, then you put Wisconsin over something like USC, who you said has been doing well, over Colorado, over
if they
Florida
truly
State.
mean the best teams at that moment,
right? And people are going to yell about that. So that would
I think no matter what, people are going to yell.
True.
Yeah, no, if it happens to be expanded to 6 or 8 teams, people are going to be wanting to expand it to 10 to 14 teams, and I'll be like, really?
It's 4 now.
It's going to be like the NCAA basketball tournament, from expanding to 6 to 8 teams, and that's like, it's a long process as well.
Listen, it's 4 now, and you have the people yelling for 6. If it gets to 6, you have the people yelling for 8, and then if it gets to 8, you have the people yelling for some kind of round robin tournament, and then you have the guys in the back with their canes yelling about the BCS good old days. So no matter what,
the guys with the canes.
Yeah, let's put it this way. So you would still have it set up the exact same way. I'd still think Bama wins it all, even if it was 6 this year. With criteria how they vote.
Even if it was like a 15-team tournament, Alabama will still win it.
Right. But so look at it like say a few years ago. When the whole TCU Baylor thing was an argument, that wouldn't have been an argument, and we saw how good one of those teams. Maybe one of them moved forward. We saw Ohio State barely get in the first year, and they won it. So don't tell me that Penn State doesn't have a shot to win just because they're at 5 and don't enter it. You know what I mean? So personally, I would love to see it move to 6. I think you could do a lot for college football if you move it to 6. You could still have the same frame of everything. Don't wait till New Year's Eve to have it start. Maybe start because it's a bye week, obviously. In a sense, everybody gets seeing as their last games were last week. They're not playing again until the end of this month. The 4 teams, so everybody gets a few weeks in terms of a quote unquote bye. So just start it the week before, the Saturday, Friday, whatever, before New Year's Eve. Have
like the Christmas weekend.
Exactly, yeah, because there's a lot of football on Christmas anyway. There's bowl games. It's not like you're messing up that scenario in that sense. So have the 3 and the 6 play and the 4 and the 5 play, same format as they have the 2 and the 3 and the 1 and the 4 playing on Christmas Eve, on New Year's Eve. And then the following week on New Year's Eve, do what you would have done this year. Do the 2 and the 3 and the 1 and the 4, the remaining, highest and lowest seeds. Do it the exact same way. All they have to do is just expand it in mind to the 2 other teams.
Yeah,
I think it would work.
It will work better. That's why I'm a bigger fan of a 16 playoff than an 18 playoff, because if you go to 8 teams, then you will have to play an extra week. And I'm not – it's just – I feel like it's getting a little too overwhelming at that point with 8 teams. Because if you put 8 teams in there – you're going to have a lot of 3-loss teams every year. Because like I said previously, you're going to have to put every conference champion in there. You're going to have to put 2 at-large teams in a group of 5 team. Well, luckily, we have a really good group of 5 team this year in Western Michigan that's undefeated.
Exactly.
And, Alabama and Western Michigan matchup will probably look good on paper, but they're really imbalanced.
I think they're definitely good in whom they play.
Exactly.
You put them up against Bama, who would smash them. You put them against Clemson, even Washington, Penn State. Teams like that I still think would win those games.
Yeah, and they're playing Wisconsin in the Cotton Bowl, so we're going to find out a lot
we're going to find out a lot about what they are.
But yeah, I am a huge fan of the 16 playoffs. I think it still kind of gives, kind of the excitement towards the end of the year.
I think 6 would work a whole lot better than 8.
Yeah, because I really think Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, really deserve to be in the playoffs, but
just imagine if we were going into a week that we had Ohio State playing Michigan again.
Yeah, that would be as a playoff game. That would drop so much numbers.
Exactly, and you can't tell me that Alabama would be sitting at home, not just sitting there being like,
I'm telling you,
beat Ohio State. You know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly.
And then you'll have the people like, Bama doesn't need another week off. It doesn't matter what they need off. They're going to win this thing anyways.
Exactly.
Alabama is. I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and she goes to Alabama, and kind of like, as an Alabama fan, you're probably more either you're so high on Bama or you see the negatives and stuff. And I was saying how there's certain teams in here. I don't think any of the three really stand up to them in any certain format that can really beat Bama. But there's teams that have, pluses and minuses to them in terms of the way they play. But I still think this year, you said it's a 6, Bama would still win, fine. But it would become less of a for sure thing because, you look at, say, Michigan or Penn State just gets hot at the right time.
Right.
It's all about consistency and momentum, and that's what football is all about. You see momentum within drives, you see momentum within weeks of games, you see them throughout seasons. So I think it would just add to so much of the college football playoff format to add to 6 teams. There's so much that can happen and make it even more of an, you see something crazy every year.
Yeah, and the competitive is still balanced. And if it gets to span to 8 teams, I feel like there's going to be a little bit more imbalance in competition, especially between the 1 and 8 team. But if it's 6 teams, if it was 6 teams this year, it would be probably like the best thing ever. Because I really do think Penn State is probably one of the only teams that can give Alabama a run. They won't beat Alabama, but they'll probably be like the toughest test out there for them. And Penn State was probably. I'm telling you right now, I don't think any of these teams are pretty lucky that Penn State is not in the playoffs. I don't think they want to play Penn State in the playoffs.
I don't. Yeah. I think Ohio State would want to play Penn State. I don't think
anyone would want to.
No. I don't think Ohio State would want to play Michigan again.
No.
Because I think they definitely should have lost that game the first time. So I think there's a lot that would go into it that would just make it so much more of an exciting thing.
And then you would have
as much as it already is.
And then if we were talking about if it was 6 teams, I can't even get my words out. If it was 6 teams, I know, I'm excited. If it was 6 teams this year, we will have. If it was like to this format, the same teams right now, we would have 3 Big Ten teams in there. If it was 6,
but at least you'd have the champion.
Exactly, we have the champion.
Yeah, exactly. Anthony. So 6 for you, is that
6 is probably the best for me, just because you still have what would be considered the cream of the crop and you don't have as many arguments of top 8 of like, this team had 3 losses, why aren't they in there? 6 would probably be the best way to do it. Since you already got 4 now, it's easier to go from 4 to 6. It was hard enough to get to 4 at one point. Now you can, bring it to 6. Maybe after that you expand it to 8, but I think 6 is probably the best to do.
Yeah, and another problem I have with it going to 8 is because, the 8th team is probably going to have 3 losses. Then they're going to say, "Oh, how come this other team is?"
Right.
They have 3 losses too.
There's
so then it's going to be even more.
People are going to yell no matter what.
They're going to yell no matter what. They just want their team in there.
Exactly. I think 8's going to be harder and more of a variance to that.
I honestly think we should check to see how the 6 team works, and if it doesn't work, then maybe expand.
I would see going to 6 as a whole lot more of a reasonable jump than going to 8 all of a sudden. And again, I can't even think of how to do an 8-team playoff at this moment in terms of like setting it up, whether or not you'd have to do it, I'm not really sure. So it's something I would love to see. But anyways, personally, 6 teams, yes, let's do it. Let's go ahead and take our first break. We'll come back. We'll talk the Oregon Ducks and whom they hired to be their new head coach. And maybe not the quote-unquote sexiest pick there is, but I think a good one. So we'll talk about it here in a minute after break at Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we are back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, and we're going to talk college football again. We'll move to Oregon, whom fired their coach about last week, I think, Mark Helfrich, who was fired, a week ago after going 4-8 overall and 2-7 in the Pac-12 this season. Oregon has hired University of South Florida's Willie Taggart to be their next football head coach. Taggart and Mississippi State's Dan Mullen were the 2 finalists for the job. Taggart has been at USF for 4 seasons now, increasing his win total from 2 in the first season to 4, and then 8, and then most recently, after Jeremiah and I called them probably not being very high in their conference this year, they finished at 10-2, and that was the best record in school history, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and I remember we did our American Athletic Conference preview. We had them finishing last.
I had them finishing second to last, I think.
Because I remember I think we had Temple finishing first, and they did win the whole.
We got that right.
We got that. They won the whole conference, and if they would have beat Temple when they played head to head, they would have. They would have won.
Yeah, so we got one right, and we would have almost missed one by the absolute opposite.
Yeah.
Now Taggart does know the Pac-12. He was an assistant with Stanford from 2007 to 2009. He was responsible for the group that recruited quarterback Andrew Luck to the school. He was also head coach at Western Kentucky from 2010 to 2012, and he's doing pretty good for himself after obviously winning a school record 10 games for USF. Now, he was one of many candidates for this position. South Florida's job now is going to include candidates all over in terms of that opening. Lane Kiffin, former Texas coach Charlie Strong, Florida State's co-defensive coordinator Lawrence Dawsey, who's a former USF assistant, so that might be a possibility for them. Ohio State's defensive coordinator Craig Schiano as well, formerly of the Rutgers school head coaching position there, and the Buccaneers.
Yeah, and the Bucs.
Now, I asked Ben and Anthony this in the sports show. With the likes of Lane Kiffin, Charlie Strong, maybe Lawrence Dawsey, but I don't know if he's ready to be a head coach in the Pac-12.
He is a former assistant of the South Florida.
You'll hear where I'm going with this. And then Schiano, he's a defensive guy. Do you think Oregon made the right choice choosing kind of a lesser name in the sense of Lane Kiffin being out there, knowing the Pac-12 but not necessarily having the best of time out there? Les Miles, who's not necessarily an offensive guy if that's the identity they're going for, but is definitely somebody who can recruit and definitely be a name to bring kids there. Or Charlie Strong, who is now looking for a job after being fired by Texas, who is definitely a player's coach, somebody who could definitely relate to these kids on a level that I think would bring a lot of young kids to Oregon, or possibly even, who knows the behind-the-scenes stuff, throwing as much money as they possibly could at Chip Kelly. Do you think Taggart was the right call?
We're going to find out if it's the right call in a couple of years. Remember, Oregon was one of the worst teams in the Pac-12. They went 4-8, and then they only won 2 games in the Pac-12. They went 2-7. Mm-hmm. That is pretty inexcusable for an Oregon team that has so much recent success. But then again, most of those players that had this success were Chip Kelly's guys. Even in Mark, Helfrich's first year, most of those guys,
those were all Steve.
Those are still Chip Kelly's guys. And then when Helfrich finally had his guys in there, like his recruits, they weren't good. So since I think it's honestly in the sense, I do think it is kind of a really good hire. I do think because you did say he was part of the team in Stanford that brought in quarterback Andrew Luck, and we know how that worked, and we know how that worked out. So I think his recruiting abilities really helps in a sense. Mm-hmm. I think that's what kind of hurt Oregon in the past couple of years with Helfrich between Kelly. Mm-hmm. So he's going, but I'm really interested to see what type of offense they're going to play there in Oregon.
Yeah. Now listen, one thing that's a fact is there's no free agency in college football.
No.
So being a team that gets better is done so through recruiting, and there's no team that got better in a sense more consistently than USF in the last few years. So obviously this guy knows how to recruit. And what's cool to me, before I throw it to you, Anthony, is the 2 top teams in that conference, their coaches now are going on to bigger and better things with
Houston.
With
okay, not only that, Baylor. Not only 2 of the top teams, but there's also 3 really good openings. Mm-hmm. Temple, USF, and Houston.
Yeah, Houston still obviously has... I believe they have Lane Kiffin meeting with them this weekend, and I think Les Miles was supposed to meet with them sometime this week as well. And then obviously, they're going to have Temple. Yeah,
those are really 3 good head coaching jobs right now that are not really talked about highly because of the conference. But those 3 teams are very physical.
I think they'll get looked at a little bit more now because you had 2 teams that were Temple obviously played great this year. And they had a coach go to Baylor, with Rule going to Baylor. And then you had USF, obviously, as we've been talking about, play great. So I think maybe they'll get a little bit more notoriety now after this offseason. Anthony, what do you make of this?
So, me, for purely chaos purposes, I want Lane Kiffin to have a job. The Oregon thing would have been fun, but he still has chances in, Houston and wherever else. But as far as, what actually happened is probably one of the best things that they could have done, just because now you have something where, someone with a proven track record, you got him over at USF, getting all the way up to 10 wins, beating a ranked team in Navy, and now you get the situation where, now he's going to be with Oregon. It's going to be something where he can, I guess, prove himself on a higher level, because that's kind of how it works with college football. Like, you don't necessarily start off your career at Oregon. You generally have to work your way up. USF was a smaller school. Now you get into one of the big conference schools in Oregon, and the good thing with him is he's not replacing Chip Kelly, right? Yeah. That's what, happened with the guy right before him. He had to take on all that kind of pressure of just like, oh, you got to be Chip Kelly, you got to be Chip Kelly. Now he's just like, hey, I'm not that guy. That guy was bad. Remember him? He was terrible. I'm not him, which is going to be what Tom Herman does over in Texas. It's like, oh, yeah, Charlie Strong, remember him? He was awful. Before that, Mac Brown. We all love Mac Brown kind of thing. You just don't want to replace the guy, so he's not doing that. And now you have a situation where if he can do well over at Oregon, maybe he can, I guess, keep moving up, I guess, into one of those, like, bigger quote-unquote schools, a la like a USC or Texas or something like that. But I like the move just because it's somebody who you saw progressively every single year of those 4 years got just a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and at a small school where it's a lot harder to do something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it's a good hire, but I think it's time to see what's going to happen. As for Lane Kiffin, I don't know where he's going to go.
I don't know either at this point.
I have very specific.
But the thing is, though, if he goes to Houston, he's actually going to replace a really good coach. Just how Anthony said, he's replacing the guy because Herman was actually the guy for the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Well, that leads us to our last break. Then we'll go ahead and take that. We're going to come back and we're going to do wide left. And we're going to talk about a coach who can't find something, a team that personifies their record. And Anthony has a surprise one for me because I don't know what his is yet. So we're going to take a break and come back. We're going to talk about that in just a second here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, and it is time for Wide Left. Because I don't know what Anthony chose, you can go last.
Okay.
In a good way. I'm not saying like you're
Sure.
banished to last.
Uh-huh.
I'll go first, then Jeremiah, of course, and then Mr. Anthony. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start in the NFC West to be specific, in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And now that we're moving to professional football. And we're going to talk a little bit about Jeff Fisher. Now, Jeff Fisher, on Sunday there was a third quarter pass to Brian Quick there. Don't hit your head, you're fine. Third quarter pass to Brian Quick that looked like a catch. Looked like he got his feet down. Kind of a sideline tiptoer. Mm-hmm. And they called it incomplete. So, Jeff Fisher, of course, wants to challenge that. It's third quarter. It's not like it's in the first. It's a significant point of the game, even though more than likely you were going to lose to the Patriots. And he's looking for his challenge flag. Goes in his pocket. He can't find it. That's weird. Goes in his other pocket. In his jacket. Can't find it. That's weird. Goes in another jacket. Can't find it. That's weird. And pretty much in his winter jacket, because it was in his Foxborough, just outside Boston in December, well, actually late November. It's pretty cold, so you got some extra on. And the man could not find his challenge flag. He explained that he always keeps his challenge flag back in his right back pocket of his coaching pants. But game time temperatures were 39 degrees. And he's a little underdressed in the first half, so he added some clothes. So I put on some wind pants, he says, and I put on a jacket. I had this really long jacket, and then I was wired for NFL Films, and they have a belt pack with two things on each side. Just it's their power source and stuff. Excuse me. So he could not find it. So with less than 11 minutes left in the third quarter, rookie quarterback Jared Goff threw that pass, so on and so forth. And I walked up to the officials, he says, and I said, I want to review the catch. I think it's a catch. And he goes, where's your flag? I said, it's right here. I can feel it, but I can't find it. He goes, well, you need the flag. Fisher asked the official to simply tell referee Jerome Boger that he wanted to challenge the call and that he would find the flag later. And it got reviewed, and the play got overturned, resulting in a 17-yard first down completion. Very good pass by Goff, by the way, in a drive that resulted in a field goal, so it turned out good for him. But, of course, it was nowhere near enough in the eventual 26-10 loss to the Patriots. A loss that did move the Rams now to 2-6 in challenges on the year.
All right.
Maybe he should keep that in his pocket a little more often, because that is a bad challenge record, Jeff Fisher. But then again, as Anthony said, you're not far from being a 500 career coach in terms of your record. So
or below 500.
Yeah,
gotta
keeps
love
on
that.
losing.
Gotta love that extension there.
That happened
Rams.
at the beginning of the year.
I know
it wasn't reported. And I think
he talked about that. He talked about that in the press conference. The LA media was so hard on him that
the LA
that
media
day.
is ruthless.
Yeah, it's a different monster than what
St. Louis
than what he or Tennessee. Remember, Tennessee media wasn't as ruthless as that as well.
Yeah, the St. Louis media is like, they're the kind of people who would be like, so do you think you're gonna get fired? The LA media, when he walks in, they're like, so when you get fired, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? Like, they are a new kind of...
Well, they're one of the top markets, of course, and LA media.
They're the kind of all the movie star people.
They're kind of used to asking those tough questions to their
sports. Not tough questions, stupid questions.
Okay.
Like, they're the kind of people that go like, hey, Kanye, you do good? Like, I know you had
why would you ask Kanye that? That's a stupid question.
That's because LA reporters.
Because that gets the crazy reaction. Then you can post it on TMZ.
That's a TMZ. That's a TMZ question right there. Kanye, are you good?
Exactly. And where do they go? Where do they house TMZ? LA.
LA.
Anyways, my friend, continue. Staying in the NFC West, I believe, right?
Yeah, we're staying in the NFC West here, and. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to have to talk about that 49ers and Bears game again.
Would you call that a game?
No.
Colin Kaepernick is actually starting this.
Yes, he is.
So it's not the Blaine Gabbert.
No, it's not. It's not the Blaine Gabbert and Bryce Petty showdown.
Bryce Petty, sorry.
The Bryce Petty showdown I was anticipating in the past couple of days, and I was
going to be a good one.
Twitter. I was on Twitter on Sunday during this game, and this has nothing to do with my little segment here. I just want to say. I even said I think Kaepernick played his last game. I was absolutely dead wrong. I was dead wrong. I guess he's going to play the final 4 games, I guess.
I guess so.
But hey,
get Christian Ponder.
I wouldn't be surprised at this point. But anyways, getting back to this play I'm going to talk about in this 49ers and Bears game. So it was basically a snooze fest for the majority of the game, especially going towards halftime. So the Niners
snooze fest from the start of the
it was a
end of the first.
Yeah, it was actually a snooze fest throughout the whole game. Just be honest. But okay, anyways, before the second quarter was ending here, the 49ers forced the Bears to punt, and they were kind of backed up towards I think near the 20. The Bears were. And the 49ers got a block punt. They blocked the punt. And Dante Johnson, a 49ers cornerback, returned it. It looked like he
about 15 yards.
About 15 yards. He looked like he returned it all the way for a touchdown.
Yes.
And then he started celebrating, making snow angels. And
then everybody started celebrating.
Is that everyone?
As a team.
Everyone in the team, everyone, their mama on that team.
Because you're not 1-10.
Everyone,
you gotta celebrate those touchdowns when you get them.
Exactly. Everyone and their mama was celebrating that touchdown. And it drew an unsportsmanlike penalty because why? Because Dante Johnson went out of bounds at the 4-yard line.
Not a touchdown.
It wasn't a touchdown.
That is the definition of the 49ers season.
And pretty much, you're 1-11. This shows why. And they went from pretty much being on the 40-yard line to probably getting a touchdown because they're probably going to run the Carlos Hyde. That was basically their game plan. To going all the way to the 19 to run it 3 straight times. And
gain 2 yards.
Gain 2 yards and get a field goal.
The only thing that would have made it more, I feel like, of the kind of like personification of the Niners this year is if they missed that field goal or turned the ball over.
I wouldn't be surprised if they would have missed that field goal, but Phil Dawson has been actually
pretty good this year.
He's been pretty.
He's your leading scorer this year.
But he's been the leading scorer.
It's because that's all he does is you guys.
All he does
points.
is score no matter what.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, Anthony. Last but not least.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we're staying in the NFC West a little bit.
Woo! All right, NFC West. I love it.
Yeah.
So Sunday night, Carolina Panthers, Seattle Seahawks had a game. And didn't get off to the best start for Carolina Panthers. You had Cam Newton get benched for disciplinary reasons with the tie.
We talked about it, and I'm 100% for it.
And because of that, Derek Anderson, the backup, is like, okay, you get to start. You have fun. Here's your chance. You were a good quarterback back in the day a little bit. Here's your chance.
I like
Go on.
Anderson.
Go on. Lead the team. Do it. 1 pass. Interception. That's it. That's all you get.
That was not his fault.
Back to the bench.
Now,
it's fine. It's not his fault. It's bounced off
a little hard. He might have been a little pumped up.
Mm-hmm.
He might
That's all fine.
It's that adrenaline, that pre-workout, man.
I saw him laughing on the bench, or at least kind of like, not like laughing like he thought it was funny, but kind of like, of course,
Right.
Because he gets 1 pass and he throws a pick. I don't think
everyone gets one.
That wasn't his bad.
It wasn't his bad. That's fine. But it's still the thing of just like, okay, yeah, Cam Newton, we're going to teach you a lesson. And then Derek Anderson's like, well, never mind.
Hey, I'm happy they did that.
Like, Cam just kind of looks at it like, that's your boy. That's who you want to play over me. That's the one you want to play. Do you see what happened?
He went on to throw 2 picks.
What's that?
He went on to throw 2 picks in that game.
That's semantics. Not
Cam
the point.
Newton sucked this year.
That's fine. Not the point. Also,
that is the point.
You put in his backup. He gets 1 chance. Like 1. Like you couldn't even just throw it into the ground, intentional grounding style. No.
The guy was open. It was not his fault that he threw that interception.
It wasn't his fault. It was just funny in the context of just like, all right, we get, Derek Anderson. Let's see what you got. What happened? Why did the other team have the ball already? How did this already happen?
I feel like this has to be for Cam Newton, this has to be one of the worst MVP to following season performances I've seen.
Yeah, in a while. I haven't seen this fallout of an MVP candidate and MVP winner.
Yeah,
following year.
I mean, you look at 2015 for him. He had 35 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. Right, a pretty good year. Just under 4,000 yards passing. His interception ratio was 2, right? It's 2.2 right now, but he only has 14 touchdowns. He has 8 picks. He's been sacked 27 times for a total of 208 negative yards. He is not having a great year.
The O-line hasn't been playing good either. I think that's the thing that
the O-line's been playing horrible.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that people aren't talking about. As an overall team, they're not playing well. They haven't run the ball effectively like they used to. That secondary is...
they're not running the ball really at all.
Exactly. That's what I said. They're not running the ball like they used to, like last year. That's basically what their main emphasis was on offense, was running the ball, and Cam Newton getting those deep throws. They're not doing that this year.
Yeah, he ended up last year with 636 yards rushing and 10 TDs as a runner. Through 14 weeks, including 13 weeks total, he has 286 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, understandable that, again, they're not running the same, and then the 5 touchdowns, I feel like that's a blown-up number because he runs on the goal line, and anybody that's 6'5" could literally lay down from roughly the 5-yard line and get a touchdown. So, understandable. But, I was fine with him getting benched. I think Derek Anderson's getting a little bit of a short stick here because he threw that pick that wasn't really his fault.
Did you happen to see the outfit Cam Newton actually wore?
Yeah, he wore a turtleneck.
Yeah, he actually did.
He looked nice, but
he looked professional. But
that's not the rules.
But like I said, we did talk about this, Alex. Ron Rivera implemented a rule that
it's
you
not
have
only
to follow.
Ron Rivera's rule; it's Richardson's rule.
Exactly.
It's the owner's rule.
So if the owner has a rule and you're an employee, you got to follow it. So.
Exactly.
Not really.
It's not the first time he's done it.
Yeah, it's not the first. Yeah, he hasn't.
4-win team.
That's why he's benching him,
and he can't
though.
treat him any different than anybody
Yes,
else.
you can. Why can't you? Yes, you can.
Because listen,
he's a quarterback.
He's your quarterback. He's your MVP.
They literally treat him differently in practice. Literally, they treat him differently with a red jersey.
In that sense, yes. But as a player and as a coach, you have to look at all of your players as the same. If your star quarterback does something he's not supposed to, and you don't discipline him for it, what does that say to the other 52 men?
That the quarterback's more important than everyone else on the team, which they already know.
And what does that do for you as a team? If Ron Rivera, I am behind him 100%. You treat your star player the same as you treat the 53rd man on your roster.
No,
not in every category, obviously, but in disciplinary reasons, yeah. I'm not going to let him get away with something that he's done multiple times as if he doesn't care. There's reports that on the bus, they said, just put the tie on, man. The problem is you're wearing a tie. I'm not wearing a tie with a turtleneck. Is your fashion really that significant that you can't just put a tie on to avoid being disciplined for something you've done multiple times this year because you don't want to clash with your turtleneck?
Lawrence Taylor showed up to practice one time in handcuffs.
Lawrence Taylor did cocaine before games.
They don't care what you do as long as you can. Yeah, they don't care what you do as long as you do well. The Dallas Cowboys had a White House where they basically took everyone that wasn't their wives.
He's not doing well.
That's the thing. They're not doing well. That's the thing. When they're 15-1, where whatever the hell he wanted, didn't matter.
I'm not gonna lie though. If Cam Newton did this last year, we wouldn't even be talking about it.
Well, no, they wouldn't have benched him.
They wouldn't have. It wouldn't have even been a discussion.
It wouldn't have been. And
it's one of those things.
The thing.
They're a 4-win team, and going to 14 weeks, of course they're going to do something.
That's just my thing. I don't care that it happened. I don't care that it didn't happen. I'm glad that he's standing his ground. And he's treating him the same.
The one thing I do want to say is that actually Cam Newton actually dressed like an actual person. He dressed like an old person.
He's still wearing the stupid hats.
His
head is so big; those hats are the biggest hats I've ever seen in my life.
I don't actually hate that. I actually like that hat that you wore with that turtleneck. It matched everything.
I mean, he looked
nice. All black.
I'm not saying he didn't look nice.
That's a really good outfit. I would love that. I would wear that outfit.
He dresses nice.
The thing, if I wore that,
no offense, buddy. I don't think it'd work on you.
Exactly. I was gonna say if I wore that outfit, probably didn't work the same because I am not as tall as Cam Newton is.
Yeah. And black is very slimming. And he's already so tall, it just looks so slimming and sleek. Yeah, Michael Wilbon on PTI called it he called him a model. Interesting, Michael Wilbon. Yeah. Anyways, we are done for the day. Tomorrow, the three of us will be back again to preview the Thursday Night Football game, a big one, and actually a pretty entertaining one between the Raiders and the Chiefs, a game that will continue to help decide the AFC West. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. And anything and everything else that comes in between then, of course, the final drive for anything we missed during the week. And that is what tomorrow's episode is going to be like. So, of course, you can tune in with us then. As always, love to thank you for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. As always, we will be back tomorrow to talk. Until then, we take our 23-hour break at this point. I am Alex.
I'm Anthony.
And I'm Jeremiah.
The three of us will see you tomorrow. You guys enjoy the rest of your day and gear up for a great Thursday night game. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy your football.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.